Hi, my friends. This is Ahmed Han again. Today, we are going to have a look at risk assessment part 1, and that is building block number 5. That's BB5. So, what is exactly risk assessment? Because we have discussed risk in the first module, BB1, and again, we have discussed it in other modules as well. Today we are going to look on the actual process of assessing the risk. One of the first lessons in our life, as you can see the picture, is when our parents used to, first time they take us and teach us how to cross the road. Simply, they ask us to look both sides of the road. That is, identifying hazards, cars, trucks, and so on. And then, if there is no cars coming from any direction, that is assessing the risk. Or if the car is very far, then we can cross. We keep looking on both sides again while we are crossing. As a matter of fact, it's not only humans that do risk assessments, animals too. When animals go to drink water, they approach very carefully, and sometimes they warn each other as well. We do risk assessment in many ways in our day-to-day life. For example, before holding a cup of tea or coffee, we slightly touch it with the tip of our finger to see if it's hot or not. So that is a kind of risk assessment. Okay, let's go ahead. As usual, I want to remind you to have a paper and pen to take notes and for any question you may have in mind, and also to observe social distancing. Also, please don't forget to subscribe in the YouTube channel. By the end of this module, you will be able to recognize risk assessment and know how to do it, and also you will know what is ALARP, ALARP, and what is residual risk. In this slide that is showing the full risk management process, you can see that risk assessment almost come in the middle, just before implementing control measures. And that is very logical because according to our risk assessment, we will decide the level of implementation of the control measures. If the risk is very low, maybe you don't need to do anything about it. So it is in the middle. Here we have few reminders. The first one is hazard, and you can see that in BB1, building block number 1, and risk as well was in the same module. And also you need to remember what we talked about, incident and accident and near misses. It will help you to go through this module here, BB5. We are going now to talk about the two elements of risk, that is the severity and the probability. Let's look at this situation. A guy that was crossing the road and he was busy chatting, and as a result of that he was hit by a vehicle. Now let's have a look on these two different scenarios, similar but different. Okay, in the first one, the driver saw him and he slowed down, and his speed came down to 20 kilometers and he hit him. He didn't kill him. And in the other one, the driver was also busy. Maybe he was also chatting or something distracted him, and he kept going on his speed, 120 kilometers, and hit the guy. As you can see, the damage in both cases are completely different. We call the degree of damage the severity of the accidents. So that's one of the elements of risk, the severity. And obviously, if the severity is high, the risk of this activity is high too. And we will represent severity by the letter S, and we will use this later in the formula R equals P times S, or S times P. It works both ways. The second element in risk is probability, or the chance for the accident to happen. You can see it from these two images taken by CCTV on the street. The girl decided to walk until the zebra crossing and wait until the green light comes and then cross. While this lady, for some reason, she decided to cross from anywhere on the road. Obviously, the chance for one of them to be hit is different. And again, the ladies that didn't follow the rule and crossed from anywhere on the road, the probability to get hit is much higher. And if the probability is higher, the risk again will be higher. So, and this will go with almost all rules that in the no smoking, no fighting, no beers in case of toxic gases, all these rules, if we break the rule, we are increasing the probability, and in this way, we are increasing the risk as well. Now, let us put them together. That is, risk equals severity multiplied by probability. And we say that risk is the product of severity and probability. And we will always use this formula, R equals P times S, or the other way around. Okay, risk is a product of probability and severity, and you can see probability increase, risk increase, severity increase, risk increase. Every time we take risk, we are gambling with our life. And as we mentioned in one of the modules before, the word hazard is derived from the name, the Arabic name of the dice used to gamble. We are gambling with our life. So how we can use the formula R equals S multiplied by P to evaluate the risk? Because we have only letters. But obviously, if I can give a value for S and another value for P, we can get a certain value for risk. And let's think of severity. Severity, which is how bad is the accident, they give it values from 1 to 5. You can review the risk assessment matrix, and it's coming in the next two slides. And then if I have a simple, like a first aid case injury, I can give it a value of 1. If I have slight injury, maybe I can give it a value of 2. If one person is killed, I can give it a value of 4. And if a multiple fatalities, we can give it a value of 5. And of course, we are talking about pair. It's not only about the damage to people, but also the damage to environment and asset and reputation. And therefore, in the risk assessment matrix, you will find numbers describing the damage that happened to all elements of pair. On the other hand, for probability or the chance of the accident, we can also give values from 1 to 5. 1, very rare or happen once in somewhere in the world, and 5 means certain to happen or happen several times. But we can do that also using alphabets, that is A to E, and again E means accident happened several times per year in that place, and A maybe didn't happen and maybe happened somewhere else in the world. We will explain later why the difference and which one is better obviously both are workable. Now we are going to learn how to calculate the risk. But before we do that, I hope you can put the risk matrix in front of you because we are going to use it. Let us now calculate the risk for the mother and her son that we saw in slide 1. If for some reason they carelessly cross the road, they are in a hurry, they didn't follow that simple rule. The first thing is we must decide the severity. So the worst case scenario, because severity is how bad is the accident, the worst case scenario is both of them will be killed, and which is a multiple fatality. And if we look to the matrix, we'll find that multiple fatality have a value of 5. Okay, now we are going to calculate the probability. Let's say that this area is known to have accident, but the accident happened once a year. If again we look to the matrix, although here we are talking about accident companies, but likewise we can say accident happened once a year. This is C or 3. I put both on the matrix if you look, so it can be C or 3. Now we can calculate the risk because we know risk is P times S. And the probability was C or 3, and the severity was 5, and that makes the severity either 15 or C5. Both of them we can use, depending on which system you're using. Now, if we refer to the matrix again, you will see in 15 or C5 is in the red zone, saying high risk, which means that crossing the road carelessly without looking both sides and waiting is a high risk activity. It's a high risk activity. Okay, here is the matrix. Let's apply what we just said on the actual matrix. First, the probability, and the probability was 3 or C, happened once in a year. And the severity, it was 5, a multiple fatality if it looks under people. And you can see in that severity that we have columns for assets and environment and reputation that spare what we discussed in the building block number 1. So the matrix can be also used for assessing the risk to environment or to asset and to reputation. If the accident have more than one effect, like one person died, which is 4, but resulted in a massive damage to the environment, we will take the highest one, and then in this case severity will be 5. Just before we finish here, I want you to have a look in the middle, in the yellow zone. We have ALARP, as low as reasonably practicable. And a simple quick idea about it, because I'm going to explain it later, is we need to bring the high risk. We don't accept high risk job. We need to bring it down as low as reasonably we can. And ALARP usually is the standard. We cannot go below the standard. Okay, so that is about using the risk matrix. It's simple, it's not complicated, and I'm sure you can use it. If you are confused, just repeat the video again, and I'm sure you will be fine. Good, you have done a good job now. Now you can use the matrix, and you know exactly how you can assess the risk using the risk assessment matrix. Now there is 2 more concepts we need to clearly understand them, because they improve our knowledge toward risk assessment, and also explain why sometimes even we do our best, still some accident happen. These 2 concepts are ALARP, as low as reasonably practicable, and residual risk. So let's start with the first one, which is ALARP. ALARP, as I said earlier, is as low as reasonably practicable. That is to say, we must bring the risk down, let's say from high risk to medium, or from medium to low, as practicable as possible. What do we mean here by practicable? Should we just bring it down and we keep adding safety equipment and procedure forever? Of course not. So where is the limit? Usually we are limited by few things. Among them is the cost and the practicality of the solution. So let's take an example. Let's say we are working in a facility and the code or the regulation for that type of facility require that we need to have 2 fire extinguishers there. So if we have only 1 fire extinguisher, that means we did not reach ALARP, we did not satisfy ALARP. We cannot continue operating if we don't satisfy at least ALARP. Or let's take another example. We are in a maintenance team for people going to work in an area that's known to have H2S, hydrogen sulfide, which is a very toxic gas. And the regulation says that each one of us must have his personal gas monitor and a breathing apparatus. It could be a self-contained breathing apparatus or an escape set. So can, for example, we say 3 gas detectors, 3 personal detectors is enough? Of course not. That is not satisfying a lot. But on the opposite, we may have another one. For example, we may have a spare breathing apparatus in case of emergency, or in case one of the one used is become empty for some reason or another. And we may have a multiple gas detector to back up and support the personal detectors we have. At least it will have a higher noise and more audible alarm and visual as well. So we can exceed, but we cannot go as far as we want to go. We cannot go below the ALARP, and we cannot just keep adding equipment and procedure. Let's go back to the room that we said the code said that type of facility require 2 fire extinguishers. And we said if we have 2 fire extinguishers, we have achieved ALARP for that particular hazard. Now, what do you think? If we have 3 is better than 2, and is 5 or 6 or even 8 better than 3? No. We have to think about like that. Maybe 3, we can say it's better than 2. Again, it depends. So let's say that the room is in its own design have a lot of obstacles and walls, and then we can go to the code, and the code will say 2 fire extinguishers for uninterrupted path. So if there is obstacles, obviously I need more. But let's take the extreme of that example to understand more. If I have an open space room and the room requires 2 extinguishers, is having 6 extinguishers better? No, it's not better. Why? It is costing more money, more maintenance, reduce the room space. It's an obstacle in case of an emergency. So then we can say, just by increasing safety equipment, it doesn't mean we make our place safer. So that is one of the use of ALARP. One of the use of ALARP. The second important concept that we need to understand is residual risk. And residual means remaining. And the definition of residual risk is the risk remaining after taking all control measures. You can see in the picture here, or this image, that we have a lot of risk and we put controls in place, and whatever remaining after all our controls is a residual risk. Residual risk may be known to us or maybe not known to us. It's maybe known or maybe not known to us. Maybe controllable or not. Example. I'll show you the example if we go to the next slide. Okay, this driver, he was being careful he has his safety belt fastened, he's not exceeding the road speed, he's following the signals, he's keeping a distance with the car in front of him, but can he control the sharp object on the road, or can he control the action of another driver? And the answer, of course, is no. So in this case, we can say no matter what we do to reduce risk, there may be always something remaining that we cannot control, like that sharp nail on the road, like the action taken by another driver on the road, like weather, for example. All these are considered residual risk. But what we can do for them, just accept them? Of course not. We can do a few things to balance, or we can still reduce the residual risk, of course, if we know about it. Okay, so we can see here, and I want you to look to this picture, very importantly. We may be going on a trip, and we don't know there is fog or not. It's going to be in some areas. So we can consider that as a residual risk. But once the fog falls down or the rain starts falling, it is no more a residual risk. It is an existing risk. Okay, let's go back now and see what we can do for a residual risk. Can we control or stop fog? No. But we can have rules preventing drivers from going to the road if there is a fog. And there is a very, very unfortunate and sad accident happened in one of the oil servicing companies where they ignored this rule, and the van moved with 8 passengers, including the driver, and it didn't even take a few minutes. It's immediate. As soon as they cleared the ramp, the trailer came and killed all of them immediately. Accident happened when we ignore the rule. Okay, what other things we can do for residual risk? Spare tires. We know that tires may actually rupture or puncture because of wear and tear and because of sharp object. So what we can do about it? We can have a spare tire. We can inspect the tire from time to time. Okay. Weather forecast. Before going to a certain trip, I can listen to the weather forecast, and if it's saying there will be heavy rain or fog, maybe I should cancel this trip. So we don't just accept residual risk. And as we said, sometimes residual risk, we don't know about it. Okay, let's now combine the two concepts, the concept of ALARP and the concept of residual risk. Think about your company or home or your factory or facility, and the electricity is taken from the local electric power company. Obviously, we have no control in their activity or operation. Therefore, having a power cut is a reasonable possibility. It is a residual risk that can happen. And of course, this can affect our operation, so we need to do something about it. And the obvious thing is to put an emergency generator. We put emergency generators. And how many emergency generators? Now we come to the point of ALARP. And you can see that it depends on the criticality of our activity. Are we in a normal office, just an office? Are we in a training center or rehabilitation center? Are we in a hospital? And you, of course, can see that there is a life safety code or regulation that will control that, especially the critical ones. And I can tell you a simple thing is when the criticality of an activity or a facility increase, the level of ALARP will increase. Obviously, in the case of hospital, we will require a lot of things to cope with the requirement of the hospital. Okay, we come now to another point. We hear and see a lot of QRA, and we have two words, qualitative and quantitative. So which one is the Q for? Well, let us first say that always the Q will be for the quantitative. So what we did with the risk matrix, was it quantitative? No, it was qualitative. But there was quantities, right? We did risk assessment and it says the risk was 15. So what is that? It's not a quantity? No, because there is no unit. If I say, for example, that we have lost 5 days, we have lost 3 people, or we have lost $500,000, all this can be measured. We know the units, we know exactly what they mean. But when I say severity is 5, okay, we describe it as catastrophic, but is that 5? Can be 20 people, can be 100 people. It is a multiple fatality. So you can see now that qualitative is not that accurate, but it serves a purpose which it's made for. It can give us a quick and practical tool of assessing the risk. So still we can use the risk matrix, and it is a qualitative. That's what is the difference. It is qualitative. When we say QRA, we mean the quantitative. It is very beautiful also, but is a kind of advanced technique and it's not part of the scope of this module. Okay, to wrap up what we just learned now, I made this simple quiz which you should answer by true or false or T or F. And you can send your answers to 2020bbossafety@gmail.com. The first one is residual risk is unavoidable, so we cannot do anything about it. You have to think about it and look back to the slides. ALARP. The L in ALARP means low. That is to say, we must reduce the money spent as much as possible. True or false? 3. We usually use quantitative risk assessment, QRA, for assessing the risk of our day-to-day operations. 4. The risk matrix must be a 5x5 format. 5. We may change the design of our company risk assessment matrix depending on the economic situation. Okay, they are simple. There is a reason behind each one of them, and I'm sure you will do very good in that. Okay, further reading for this one, hazard and risk register. Each facility should have what we call a hazard and risk register, where they will list all the hazards they have and who is exposed to, and they assess the risk using the matrix, the qualitative. Of course, in the very severe things like explosion and things like that, they may, or they have to use the QRA. But here, I want you to search and find what is the hazard and risk register, and maybe you can see a sample and you can do hazard and risk register for your unit or company, or even for your home. Okay, managing chemical hazard. Managing chemical hazard, as we said before, any managing of hazard will start by identifying the hazards. In chemical especially, of course, we have hundreds of thousands of chemicals. There is a lot of tools to help us. And in chemicals, we need to remember the routes of entry. So I want you to find out what are the routes of entry for a chemical hazard. All this will help you a lot. Okay, my friends, finally we reached the end of this module. I hope I managed to make it simple and easy, and I'm sure if you review this video a couple of times, you'll become master of risk assessment. Finally, before you go, please make sure to subscribe in our YouTube channel. And in case you need any information, you can email us. You can see the emails here down. If you want to answer the question, send to 2020bboss@gmail.com. If you have an idea or you want to recommend or rectify something that you see can be done better, please send to md@transtech.com. Thank you very much. And finally, I would like to help our sister company, Transtech Solutions Limited, and who sponsored this free lessons and made it possible to give it to you free. And Transtech Solutions Limited is located in Masdar City, Abu Dhabi, and they are the regional agent in the whole GCC countries for a unique product, the NovaCool. I have put the link, the website of NovaCool, www.novacool.com, and actually it is not something different from what we're discussing. Fire hazard is one of the main hazard in any work site. It may be on the top of the list. And controlling fires require knowledge. And one of this is the foam technology. And NovaCool is really the best firefighting foam ever invented so far. I'm saying that honestly and seriously. So I would like you to have a look and spend some time on that one. I know you're not going to buy, and that is the beauty of it. Improve your knowledge. Thank you very much. See you in the next building block.